Welcome to Boards and Gear. This segment, we are going to talk about responsibilities. So Nancy, why is that important?
Well, a community has entrusted a board with money and resources, believing that they're going to make a difference. If the board has the right level of oversight, they'll better be able to achieve their mission and protect its assets.
Okay, well, it just so happens we have two experts here to talk about the compliance side of responsibilities.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Sherrill with the Secretary of State's office.
And I'm Howard Donkin, tax partner at Jacobson Jarvis, and we're here to talk about tax compliance. You're going to talk about the state, and I'm going to talk about the federal.
That's right. We're the compliance people, and we're here to help you. It's really important to keep your file up to date. It helps with compliance, and funders require that you're current. There may be two reasons that you are required to file with our office. If your organization wishes to be nonprofit, it must file articles of incorporation with the Secretary of State. And it must file annually. If an organization solicits or receives contributions from the public for a charitable purpose and receives more than $50,000 or pays anyone to carry out the organization's activities, it registers with our office annually and renews by the 11th month after the organization's accounting year end.
I imagine people can go to your website for more information.
They sure can.
The federal story is very similar. You need to stay compliant to avoid penalties and loss of tax-exempt status. In order to get your tax-exempt status, you need to file an application with the IRS. Once approved, you need to file a Form 990 every year. Board members have a duty to stay informed, and they should read their Form 990 every year. Some board members aren't aware that the Form 990 is a public document, and it is available for funders to review at any time on guidestar.org.
And that's compliance. If you have any questions, let us know. We're here to help.
Okay, now let's hear from two other experts that can teach us about board responsibilities beyond compliance.
I'm Nancy Long. I'm the Executive Director of 501 Commons, and I'm here with Sarah Lawson.
I am an executive coach and leadership consultant and do a lot of work with nonprofits.
And we're here to talk with you about board responsibilities.
And let's just start talking about why it even matters that a board knows its responsibilities. What do you think about that?
I think having clarity about what your role is and how you're going to succeed at that role is important for everyone, because we all like to be successful in the things we do. And so having a clear understanding of what the responsibilities are at both the organizational level, at the board governance level, and also what the individual responsibilities are of myself as a board member really helps me feel like I'm set up for success, and I'm likely to really be able to benefit the organization, which is, after all, why I joined the board.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think if it's worth doing well. And knowing what's expected of you as a board and as a board member is really the foundation for being effective and collaborating and doing the good work that you're setting out to do.
A really simple way to break down the responsibilities of the board is to talk about the board as having a role to govern the organization and then to support the organization. And the governance is something that a board does as a team. It's really a team sport to govern the organization. And the support of the organization is more done as an individual. That's around giving to the organization, helping communicate to the outside community about the organization, helping support the executive director in whatever way they need support. But the governing part is kind of the tricky part, and Sarah's going to talk a little bit about those responsibilities.
Yeah, I like to think of governance as having three main components. There's an oversight element, which is about the sort of legal and financial stuff. There's a strategic element, and then there's this sort of sense-making, where are we in the bigger picture of our ecosystem, whatever the mission is that we're serving. So let's break it down a little and talk about each of those. So let's talk about financial management and the sort of fiduciary legal oversight. What's your angle on that, Nancy?
The financial piece is very important, but I think it's also very important to stay grounded in the purpose of why the board is dealing with the nonprofit's finances. It's very important for the organization to have a budget and to monitor that budget. But I think it's also important to think about the budget really as a plan. It's the words behind the numbers that really matter. What is the organization trying to accomplish? What resources is going to take to accomplish that? And then how is the organization going to use those resources? So the board needs to make sure the organization has a budget. They're getting regular financial reports so they can see whether the organization is on plan or not on plan and make adjustments if necessary. And then every time you do that evaluation, it also helps you do a better job of preparing the next year's budget.
If your organization is currently looking like X and you want it to look like Y 3 or 5 years from now, if you have a vision for where you're going to go, then that strategic thinking and planning is about how to get from where you are to that future vision. And that's a place where the board can be really, really helpful in bringing lots of different perspectives and connections within the community, and really be a place for two-way communication between the organization and the community that it's involved with.
And a part of that strategic thinking that we don't tend to want to prioritize because it's less fun is actually thinking about risk that the organization faces and how to mitigate those risks or worry a little bit about those risks so that the organization is prepared and is less likely to be damaged if there's some kind of a crisis. And so there's some minimum things that I think every board should at least have a conversation about and potentially get to the point where they have this conversation written down. They need to think about what would happen if something happened to the organization's facility. If they have a facility, how would they continue to provide services? So some emergency planning that would keep clients and staff in the facility safe in the case of an emergency. They need to think about what would happen if the executive director or whoever the lead volunteer who's kind of coordinating the operations of the organization were not able to serve. What would the organization do and how would they get through that crisis, even if it's just a short-term crisis? And those things are not the fun part of strategic planning, but they should be a part of strategic planning so the organization doesn't get caught unprepared.
Yeah, those are all absolutely really important. And then that third piece of the governance role is really thinking of yourselves as a think tank. So what expertise do you bring? What understanding of the community do you bring? And how do you share that? And how does that help inform the strategy and the budgeting and the choices and the programs and the direction that your organization is going in? And I think that's a really important part of being on a board, and that's something that we don't always recognize.
You know, I think about the importance of the chair also in this area, because the chair really is sort of the orchestra leader for the board. And the chair needs to have both a responsibility of helping set the agenda for board meetings and manage that agenda so that whatever the organization is trying to accomplish gets accomplished. But they also need to be really attentive to the people in the room and the participation of the people in the room. So it's a bad sign if the chair's doing most of the talking in a board meeting, and a good sign if everybody on the board has said something in a board meeting. And so that role of, in some ways, facilitating the engagement of all the board members, and at the same time staying really focused on getting to the agenda items and making sure that the board is getting its work done in support of the organization are important roles of the board chair.
Yeah, for sure. And there are a couple other things that are particular responsibilities for the board chair that I've seen, where if you have staff, often it's the board chair who's the liaison between the board and the staff and is kind of communicating priorities and concerns in both directions about board performance or about the organization. And sometimes the board chair is also the spokesperson for the organization. It's almost sometimes that person off the street testimonial in a public-facing setting about, hey, I'm volunteering here, and as a leader, volunteer leader in this organization, here's why I care about this, or here's what that issue is about. So it's a complex role, and it can be a really, really fun and engaging role.
I think that gets even more complicated when you have a situation where there isn't a paid staff. And many times board members are both playing the governance role as a group and trying to manage the way that the organization moves forward, but they're also involved in actually doing the work of the organization. And we often talk about that as having two hats, so you sort of take off your governance hat and put on your volunteer hat. That's a little bit easier in an organization that has a management structure, because then when you put on your volunteer hat, you know that you're working for the ED and the staff. There's somebody in charge that has that authority. And an organization that is really managed by what I would call a volunteer staff, and then there's also a board. It's still important for the board to think about those roles separately and to understand they have different responsibilities when they've got on their board hat versus when they've got on their volunteer hat.
Yeah, and it may seem, if you're wearing both of those at different times, that the programs or the activities of the organization are so urgent that that's what you're focused on. You still have the responsibility to fulfill the governance side of being on the board. That's just a crucial thing to know. So that board hat, you can't just throw it away and never put it on. You have to attend to those financial oversight and strategy and kind of big picture thinking that makes a board really effective.
Wow, that was a lot of very useful information. So how do we take all this information and move forward?
Well, there's some key tools that can help you out. The IRS Form 990, your documents with the Washington Secretary of State, conflict of interest policy, job descriptions, and a commitment form for the board. Some next steps you might consider. Discuss the 3 duties and what they mean to your board. Get your compliance act in gear, putting key dates on your calendar. Talk about your mission and how well it's being achieved through your programs. Maybe get a dashboard with 2 or 3 key metrics. Brush up on finance. Remember, Finance Unlocked for Nonprofits is there to help.
This seems like a big task, but you can do it.
You can do it. You can do it. And it's important that you do it because your mission's important.